You are listening to Faithless Brewing, a Magic the Gathering podcast for the Spike Rogue. Each week we design new decks for tournament play. We put our creations to the test and share our findings on the air. What went wrong with Nixilis the Adversary? Was Ob a casualty of inflated expectations, or is there a new strategy still to be discovered? We dive in today on Faithless Brewing, plus another look at Jinnie Fae and testing results with moderation. All of that and more is coming up. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the Faithless Brewing podcast. I'm your host, Dan Shriver, also known as Cavedan online. I'm joined today all the way from Argentina. You know him as Moored to Light. It's Emi Sagasti.
Hey, OCO, how is it going? Going all right here in the not so cold, but actually really cold, and I'm literally hiding in my stove, Argentina.
What, you're using your stove to heat your apartment?
No, sorry, not my stove, my... How do you call this small thing that generates heat? How do you call this?
Oh, the space heater?
My baby. It's my baby.
It feels like the plot of a Simpsons episode or something. Like, you need to use your refrigerator to keep the apartment cold. Use your stove.
I mean, it's really common here. Like, even the girl I'm dating just does it all the time. You just turn all the stoves in your oven, the stoves, and you just use that for heating. It's like extremely common in here.
You don't leave the door of the oven open, do you? I mean, that doesn't seem safe.
No. I mean, yeah, we do.
Oh.
Did I ever tell you about the time I almost burned myself to death with a space heater?
No, you told me about the time that your cats almost burned the apartment down.
No, that was the oven one. So, when I first moved on my own, it was to an old apartment that was owned by a friend. And she owned this small space heater, which was like really small and probably unsafe. And I just went to sleep in a couch one day because I was going to take a nap, and I just left it on. And the cable it was connected to was behind the couch. A few hours pass by, and I wake up to the smell of smoke and burnt. And I turn around to realize the plastic was starting to melt, the cables were this close to touching, and everything was just over. It for some reason had like completely up the tension, and the whole plastic in the wall was melting down, like burning the floor, and the couch was starting to turn on fire, and everything was filled with smoke. So I just woke up, rushed, and like turned out the electricity, and I was like, "What?"
That's horrifying.
I didn't even get scared. It was like so shocking. Like in retrospective, I was like, "Damn, that I was so close to that." But at the moment, I was like, "Oh wait, fuck." My couch.
Right, these space heaters are like killing machines.
Yeah,
like,
they are.
They're really dangerous.
They are. Now I look at this one, like I don't even let it on a lot of the time.
Alright, just turn the oven on. Alright, you convinced me. That's the safest way to do it.
Gas is less dangerous than the space heaters, everybody. I mean, is gas still common there in the stoves? Or is everything electric there?
I'm gonna send you a nice warm blanket.
I have a lot of warm blankets. But, space heaters. It's like small campfire. That's for me.
Well, it is sweltering hot in North Carolina. It is insanely hot, so...
I don't envy you.
Just hearing you talk about this is making me a little bit... I'm starting to sweat.
You can see the sweat. Where does sweat start in Dan's hair?
Exactly. So, today is Monday. We are brewing with, it's actually a new card, yeah. That's a card we've talked about before. It's Nixilis, the Adversary. A card that's been a disappointment so far. I think it's fair to say that.
I expected it to not be as good as it was, so I'm happy with the amount of play it's seeing.
Which is next to zero.
Exactly. I think that we have reached the point where Nixilis is a good card in the niche decks it belongs.
So when we first talked about it, I mean, this was like the actual first card that we talked about from New Capenna. There was like that weird week where you couldn't actually play with the decks yet because they wanted the paper release to happen first. So David had drawn up some lists. I think, Emmy, you also like brainstormed some lists, and Nixilis was like the it card. It was like 70 or 80 tickets. You couldn't even rent it for a long time.
It was insane, yeah. And it just went.
You should have short sold those if you had a chance.
That was the move.
And traded into some letter shredders with with those sales that you made. So it's affordable now. It's really, really come back down to earth. I think it's still overpriced at like 18 ticks, but still.
It has gone considerably down.
It's a niche card, exactly as you're saying. So I want to like give it maybe a second chance, or at least try to figure out what went wrong. A post-mortem, if you will, on Nixilis while we're still in New Capenna season. After we do that, we will talk a little bit about Jinnie Fey, Jetmir II. That is our card of the month. We'll highlight some cool lists and concepts from the Faithless Brewing Discord. And if we have time, I'll tell you a little bit about my testing with our card from last week, which was Moderation.
Everything in moderation.
Before we dive in, quick reminder, if you like what we do here at the podcast and want to support us, the best way to do so is by joining our Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/faithlessbrewing. You can make a pledge at any tier you like, can be $1 a show. That'll get you access to our Discord channel. You'll get other perks as well. You'll be able to vote on cards, come chat with us, come hang out. We got an awesome community there in the Discord, always kicking ideas around, and sometimes firing off those sweet 5-0s, as we talked about last time.
Exactly. From time to time, we will actually get a nice, beautiful deck going. And sometimes we will just go down a really unmoderated train of thought.
Was that a moderation pun, or was that...
Of course that was a moderation pun. I never said it was a good pun.
It's like, wait, did he just... No, he couldn't.
He couldn't.
He wouldn't dare.
He wouldn't dare ban on my show.
I was so taken aback, I had to actually ask you, like, was that...
He wouldn't. Mort would never do that. His sense of humor is superior to that cheap jokes.
Yeah, so if you... you want to get more its freshest takes, yeah, come hang out with us in Discord. We'd love to have you there. Other ways that you can support us, we've got a new YouTube channel. So check that out and let us know what you think. I mean, we're always iterating with the format there, hoping to get more gameplay up soon.
Exactly, trying to get you to see what we're actually playing and enjoying with the Faithless Gang. So, with that said, let's talk about the killer, the assassin of the Maestro's leader of Nixilis the Adversary.
Is that what happened? He killed Lord Xander and took his place?
If you look at that card, like the literal art of that of Nixilis, in the floor is Lord Xander's body.
Oh, Xander. What happened?
Like, Nixilis organized a coup where he got his demons to attack all the heads at the same time, and he personally went to the Maestro's one, trying to take over the Halo production.
So he's a bad guy.
He's always a bad guy.
He's 1 black-red. Legendary planeswalker Nixilis, 3 loyalty. He has casualty X. Casualty means that when you cast the spell, you have the option to sacrifice a creature with the requisite power. And then when you do, you copy the spell, and you in this case, will get another copy of Nixilis. The copy will not be legendary. That's a special ability written onto the card. And because it's Casualty X, you can choose any creature you want. Whatever the power of that creature is will determine the starting loyalty of your bonus Nixilis token.
Okay, so it can be 0. That's what you're saying.
It can. If you have a 0 power creature, you are allowed to sacrifice it to Casualty. You will get a 0 loyalty Nixilis, which may or may not help you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not nothing.
Yeah, but you can. That's the important part.
Yes, you can.
So, regarding its abilities, it's +1, its opponent loses 2 life and they discard a card. If you control a demon or devil, you gain 2 life. -2, you create a 1/1 red devil token. When it dies, it pings for 1, so the Dival demon or the common token devil that you will always see. And the -7, which is I think the card the ability that everybody was hype about and then realized it wasn't as good as they thought. Target player draws 7 and loses 7 life.
Do you think that's the ability that has let people down?
I think 50% of the people that were overhyping the card were just dreaming of the scenario where they get to sacrifice a Tarmogoyf and just -7 someone.
Interesting. So I was thinking, like, wow, for 3 mana I can get 2 planeswalkers in play and just relentlessly plus on everybody. And I felt like that was what let people down, like, because the +1, although it has a lot of text, it doesn't actually do anything.
Yeah. No, I think what happened was eventually people realized what I think I was defending from the start, which is, at least in Modern, I'm always going to talk mostly in Modern, is if you have a creature alive, you're winning. Generally, if you have a creature alive on turn 3, you're winning or you're doing what you want. Are you willing to sacrifice that creature when you're ahead? Because if I have a Tarmogoyf in play and I play a Liliana, I'm still going to be ahead.
So the dream of sacrificing a creature with like really high power in order to get a high loyalty Ob Nixilis, that has not been worth it.
Exactly.
Like, that's taking a step backwards.
And the same happened when they were like, okay, turn 1 Ragavan, turn 2 Nixilis, and they are like, wait, your Ragavan is uncontested. Do you really want to sacrifice an uncontested Ragavan? Are you sure about this?
I did wonder, like, what if I just ramp the normal way, but you look at what creatures can do that, and it's like, actually, 0/1 mana dorks don't work.
They're all ones. They're all 0/1s for some reason. Like, not even 1/1s. Like, you would have to play really bad mana dorks. Like, No Birds of Paradise, Ignoble Hierarch, which are the 3 better ones, are unplayable with this. And that's where it gets a lot tougher.
So you're looking at basically Arbor Elf is your only way to do this.
As your only playable one, yeah.
I had like briefly talked myself into Elves of Deep Shadow as like another way to Nixilis.
I mean,
I was desperate. It was really dire.
That could work better than a lot of stuff that people have been testing. But that's exactly what happened with Omnixilis, right? Like, sacrificing a creature is a lot bigger of a cost than people assume. And the problem with Omnixilis is, yeah, 2-3 mana Resurgence is amazing, but if you just play Omnixilis on its own, it's worth 1.5 mana.
Yeah. The other thing that I realized, I think other people came to this conclusion as well, it's like, why is it so important to me to ramp into Ob Nixilis? Well, it's because I understand that if I'm behind on board, Ob Nixilis sucks. So it's really important to me to get him down a turn early. And it's just not going to happen. If you put 4 Obs in your deck, you're going to draw them when the board is at parity or when you're behind. And he doesn't do anything. He literally does nothing in these situations. He invites you to sacrifice what little creatures you have to make your opponent lose life once, and then your Ob Nixilises get attacked. Or ignored, which is even more insulting. So this +1 like does not impact the board. You make the opponent lose 2 life if they want to. If they don't want to, they can discard a card, and sometimes that actually helps the opponent, like if they're on a Greasefang deck or a Phoenix deck or something.
They're just gonna help them.
I was trying to like figure out what other people had learned about this card, so I was going through like different comments and different discussions on like Reddit and different websites, and someone was like, I had to take this out of my shadow deck because I kept on, gaining life off the +1 and it was screwing up my Death Shadows. Man, you just can't do anything right with Ob Nixilis. I don't know what it is.
I think I don't know if we have ever seen a fair Omnixilis build yet. Like just a control deck trying to use Omnixilis like as a finisher.
So that I think is worth exploring. It's worth trying once. I feel like the answer is Dwarven Mine. Like that's got to be the answer, because where else am I going to get a low-cost creature that I don't care about?
Creativity had a small resurgence, and one of the versions, which I think was the worst, was playing Omnixilis.
How many Ob Nixilis were they playing? I didn't find that in the 5.0s. So
2 or 3.
Was this like actually a winning deck, or was it just like a theoretical deck?
It was made by the meme heel of Magic. Who is the meme heel? The Shoker heel.
I don't know. Who is the meme heel of Magic?
Who is he? I don't remember the name. The guy that made a video talking about like an hour. The one that was discussing that Pablo Vita Rosa sideboard was wrong. What's the name of this guy?
Oh, the Joker.
Yes!
Zan Syed.
Yes!
How could we forget the Joker? He's the Joker to your Justice League.
And he literally was like, this is the best deck in the format, everybody. Trust me, this is insane. And proceeds to never get a good result with it. Which was like a 4-color treachery. It was a 4-color creativity that for some reason the payoff was Agent of Treachery.
What format was this? I feel like Zan Syed mostly plays Arena these days.
And it's a Modern deck that he said was the best deck in Modern. And literally quoting, "The deck feels unfair and I can't imagine playing anything else until something gets banned." Look at that click rate value. Look at that meme. The meme machine. And it literally features 2 Bitter Blossoms and 2 Nixilis in the sideboard.
Oh, you're serious? It was modern. I thought you were...
No. I wish.
Okay. Like, Mord has got to be mistaken here. There's no way he's talking about a modern deck.
No. The main deck is 4 Agents of Treachery, 3 Bone Shards, Lightning Axe, Spellpierce, Thoughtseize, Prismatic Command, Expressive Iteration, Persist, Red and 6, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Indomitable Creativity.
Well, that's just Zan being Zan.
Oh, of course.
All right, so what else have people learned about Nixilis? Here are some of the quotes that I found. Just random quotes from strangers in the wild. Quote, "I will admit that Nixilis is the weakest card in the deck." End quote.
I have barely seen anyone play him. All the Rakdos guys in my group tried him and sucked him off.
Yes. He is not particularly strong in any non-control meta, but I love him. Out of the board against control. These are real testing results. I mean, I believe these people. I'm not quoting them because they're wrong. I'm just like, man, the hopes have been dashed so much. I mean, I remember how excited David and I were about this card during preview season.
I reached the conclusion that Nixilis is great against any deck that doesn't contest the board. Which means it's great against burn, control, and combo. Sadly, most decks contest the board as their method of winning, and Nixilis does the opposite of that.
If the board is being contested, as we say, that means they're playing creatures, you're trying to establish dominance, the -2 becomes the important ability. And one player who was playing Nixilis in a sack shell said that, yeah, the -2 was by far their most important ability because it just represents more damage than the +1 does.
Yeah.
Getting the Devil token, which then synergizes with things like Mayhem Devil, Witch's Oven, etc., it's just like gonna do more than plussing and hoping that that little Punisher drain 2 or discard is gonna swing the game.
So the thing with Nixilis is that it requires you to play a deck that's not fighting the board because you need to have control of the board in order to play it, but you also need creatures in order to sacrifice. So you need to control the board and to have creatures, which is contradicting nature in itself.
Well, you need to be a sacrifice-based control deck, and when you put it that way, there's only like one archetype that has ever successfully done that. It's what we call like Rakdos Sacrifice. Part of the reason that I wanted to look at Ob now was that Rakdos Sacrifice, against all odds, has made a comeback. Maybe like just for one weekend, but Doomwake and some other popular streamers were
giving it a shot,
picking the deck up and saying, oh, actually it's like sort of good again. They did well in the Saturday challenge, and then even more players picked it up on the Sunday challenge. It was actually the most played archetype in the Sunday Pioneer challenge last week. 5 copies in the top 8.
That's insane.
Shocking to me. So when I say Rakdos Sacrifice, what does that actually mean in the age of Nixilis? This is a deck that has at various times included cards like Oni-Cult Anvil. Experimental Synthesizer has been in and out of the lists depending on who was playing it. They usually have Bloodtithe Harvesters. That card has established itself as one of the most important creatures in Pioneer.
Yeah.
The sacrifice core that's in these versions is Cauldron Familiar, Witch's Oven, the Cat Oven combo, 4 Deadly Disputes, 2 Village Rites, 3 Fatal Push, 4 Mayhem Devils, that's kind of your power card to control the board and close things out. The new tech, well, you have Unlucky Witness, 4 copies of this. This is like the creature version of Experimental Synthesizer. Single red, 1/1 Human Citizen. When Unlucky Witness dies, exile your top 2 cards. Until your next end step, you can play one of those cards. So it gives you a long time, unlike Experimental Synthesizer. You get a long time to use the card of Unlucky Witness.
But you only get one. It's like a 1-for-1.
Exactly. But if you're using that to fuel your Village Rites, your Deadly Dispute, that's a fair trade.
Yeah.
And the card that was not in previous versions is Claim the Firstborn. 4 copies of Claim the Firstborn in all of these lists, and I feel like this is the key card. Like, this is such a swingy effect, right? Claim the Firstborn for just 1 mana can active treason a small creature, which you can then sacrifice to any one of your sacrifice effects, whether that's Witch's Oven, whether that's Deadly Dispute, or whether that's Nixilis' casualty ability. So if Claim the Firstborn is good, I feel like this deck can be extremely powerful.
Yeah, claiming to Nixilis is just devastating, right? Like, all of a sudden, the nature of needing to play to the board gets completely inverted. You're taking control of your opponent's creature and using it. Not only you can pressure them with it, but then also just use some Nixilis as a removal spell that then pressures their hand.
So this is the version you're likely to run into if you're playing in the Pioneer Leagues right now, and it is playing 3 copies of Nixilis. It's on plan, it's beating out other effects like Oni-Cult Anvil, for example. So it's doing something right. And I mean, I feel like this is a board control based deck. At least it's very hard for creature decks to attack through this. Ob is likely to survive, and you will win with chip damage, whether through Mayhem Devils, Cat Oven, or Ob.
Do you happen to have an idea of how many unlicensed cards it's playing on the sideboard? I can't let go of this gag because it's true. It's playing 2 unlicensed cards on the sideboard.
Yeah, I mean, we already said it was a Pioneer deck. It has 2 unlicensed hearths. We've established this.
It's a running gag that's destroying me because it's true.
Well, you didn't mention that Modern deck that had 4 in the main deck.
Oh yeah, the Red Eldrazi. There has to be an exception. The exception that proves the rule.
And they were pairing it with Eternal Scourge. I mean, that's the combo. That's the dream.
The dream, making your curse smaller.
Okay, so Rakdos Sacrifice and Pioneer is like a pretty decent deck right now. Can you do this in Modern? A couple people have tried it.
The problem with Modern, before we go ahead, is the bug in Greater Gargoron really affects this deck. We have seen a lot of people try to test with Greater Gargoron because it works well with the sacrifice part and also a great creature to sacrifice Chom Nixilis as a finisher, right? Hit you for 7, play on Nixilis -7. The problem is Gargaron doesn't get off suspend if you use its ability.
It's been there for years, it feels like.
Yeah, it's been at least a year.
So you can still get Gargadon if you let the last counter come off during your upkeep naturally, but if you activate the ability to remove the last counter, you just don't get your Gargadon.
Yeah, you cannot get your Gargadon an instant speed on your opponent's attack step, for example, which is relevant a lot for the time as an instant speed blocker. Or just get it in response to a Wrath effect, right? Like remove almost all counters.
So we do have a 5-0 from the player Zulatin. This is from mid-May. They were playing 2 Gargadons. Despite the bug, I think it's still like just important to have access to this sacrifice outlet. Because this is an artifact-based package. So the Pioneer one, we were talking about Unlucky Witness and Village Rites type effects. This one has a lot more artifacts, so we're in Modern again. So we have Mishra's Bauble, we have 4 Experimental Synth, 4 Witch's Oven, 4 Oni-Cult Anvil, 4 Galvanic Blast. The creature package, Cauldron Familiars, Ragavans, 4 Ravenous Squirrels, 3 Mayhem Devils, 2 Croxas, the 2 Gargadons, of course, and 3 Ob Nixilis, the Adversary.
3 Ob Nixilis.
Do you feel like this is a faithful interpretation of the Pioneer shell? Is it trying to win the same way, or is this doing something different?
I think this plays of a bit of a more combo-ish way, in the way that you're not winning via creature combat with this. Like, you only get 2 creatures that are able of attacking, and that's like Ragavan and a big squirrel in the late game, right? Your plan is clearly not combat. It's Oni-Cult plus Mayhem Devil plus Nixilis plus blast.
Well, you have Ravenous Squirrel. I mean, what is that there for if not to attack and block?
No, it's a way to pressure your opponent, of course, a way to force a removal, but I think most games are getting win by accumulative points of by death by 1,000 blades. By 1,000 cats. It's like ping you for 1 with the Oni-Cult, get back my cat, ping you for 1, blast you for 4, sacrifice my synthesizer, ping you for 1, you fetch shock, you're already down to 10.
Okay, so do you believe in Ob Nixilis for a deck like this, or is it one of the worst cards?
I think you need to test it. I do like the synergy with Greater Gargoron in that it's like a really fast finisher, right?
Yeah, well, you can also just attack with your 9-power creature.
No, I mean, even if your opponent is like at full life, attacking with your 9-power creature plus 7 from the Nixilis is gonna kill practically anyone.
Oh, true. And you still have a 2-power Nixilis left over.
Exactly.
Somehow. Okay. Well, what about this next Modern build here? So this one, also from mid-May, from Sanso JF. Instead of playing the artifact package, so they are relying more on creatures, and therefore they're interested in Goblin Bombardment. So instead of saying, okay, Greater Gargadon to sacrifice my experimental synths and feed the Oni-Cult anvils, saying, forget about all that, I'm just going to play creatures that I can feed to Goblin Bombardment, which pairs with Mayhem Devil to just devastate the battlefield. These have the battlefield completely on lockdown when you have a Mayhem Devil and a Goblin Bombardment in play.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of games just being won by Mayhem Devil plus a fetch land plus like double Bloodgust. Like the game just it's completely off the handle once you start sacrificing Bloodgust again and again. Like play my land, get back Bloodgust, sacrifice, ping for 4, fetch, get 4 extra damage, and just complete a whole of the game.
So this deck is not playing Ravenous Squirrel, and it's not playing Cat Oven either. Instead, it's playing 4 Unlucky Witness, 4 Bloodgast, very powerful with the fetch lands. A little heavier on 3s, 4 copies of Seasoned Pyromancer, 4 Mayhem Devils, 4 Nixilis. They even found room for Thoughtseize and Unearth, which is a little bit surprising to me.
I think Unearth is extremely important in this build as a way to tempo back a lot of games. Just unearthing a Seasoned Pyromancer is one of the best feelings in Modern.
It's true, and if you just like have a Seasoned Pyromancer in play, you can just feed it to something, sacrifice it to Bombardment if you have to.
Exactly, and then unearth it again. The full playset of Food Miniaturization on the sideboard. Gotta love that. I mean, it's a card that sacrifices, has sacrificed synergy alongside the fact you can just get it back.
Alright, so those are Modern and Pioneer versions of Nixilis in sacrifice decks, like dedicated sacrifice decks. Chip damage, small creatures, fodder, etc. What about the other plans for Ob? Right, like one of the plans that I think we've mostly given up on is getting 1 high power threat in play, and then having casualty 7.
Well, we have that in Pioneer with the Regisaur build by Strangled Angles. Strangled Angles.
Strangled Angles.
Which features 4 Black Soul Champion, 4 Knight of the Evil Legion, 2 Tenacious Thunderdog, 4 Bone Crusher Giant, 4 Rotting Regisaur, and 4 Nixilis. So going all in on that.
I do not understand this deck. It looks like mono black aggro, right? Like where else do you find Bloodsoaked Champion and Knight of the Ebon Legion? But then you look down and there's also 4 Kumano Faces Kakazans.
The Kumano destroys me. The Kumano destroys my psyche. I can't justify it, I can't argue for it, I just... You know when you just look at a card and are like defeated mentally? Also 2 Allies Curse on the sideboard. And you're like,
yes.
Why does it play 4 Kumano?
Well, it just gives you a lot for 1 mana. I mean, if I want to like get on the board every game with a 1-drop, these are ostensibly the best 1-drops you can find in black and red colors.
No one has tried Kumano in Modern, which is likely a good idea.
You think so?
I mean, I think it's a good idea not trying it, but I also know I'm an idiot. So...
For value or just for like specific synergy?
Value.
Like here, I think it's just like, okay, this is worth more than most 1-drops.
Yeah. I'm wondering in what scenario in Modern is this worth more than most 1-drops?
Here's another question I had. So let's say that my opponent knew that I was going to try to cast Nixilis on turn 3. So this deck from Strangled Angles is playing 4 Nixilis. What if they like kill my first 2 plays, right? Like they shock my first 2 creatures and then I have no way to casualty on turn 3. Like, is that why Kumano is here? Because Kumano doesn't become a creature until turn 3?
Oh, because it's a... Okay. So you can go stuff like turn 1 Kumano, turn 2 Tenacious Thunderdog as a 4-3, force your opponent to remove that into you still get your turn 3 of Nixilis. Unless they have... When does Kumano flip? No, they have no priority, right?
I believe it flips at the beginning of your main phase.
It doesn't give priority. You cannot stop your opponent from playing Nixilis with a Kumano down. That's cool.
That's extremely niche. I don't know if that's actually ever come up. But Strangled Angles did 5-0 twice with this, so they must be onto something.
That's actually a really interesting synergy as a way to make sure you have your creature on 3. I haven't considered that, and I really like that. Because it solves one of the main weaknesses we have discussed.
So we did a week on Regisaur, like way back when it first came out. I feel like for the most part it did not perform well in aggro decks like this. On the other hand, this is a very low curve deck, right? So Regisaur, if your hand is empty, there's no drawback.
Yeah, this empties your hand incredibly fast, right? Like your curve topper is of Nixilis and Regisaur.
Maybe this is just catching people by surprise, right? Like they're bringing in all their cheap spot removal, expecting to fend off Knight of the Ebon Legions, and then all of a sudden there's a 7/6.
And all of a sudden, bam.
Or all of a sudden 2 Nixilises, one of them has 7 loyalty.
This, okay, This is an interesting one. Also, the fact it plays 3 Hive of the Eye Tyrant, 3 Den of the Bugbear. Up to 6 Manlands. 1 Soggensan and 1 Tagenuma means you have 8 utility lands, plants, and Agadims. That's a lot.
So the modern equivalent of this deck, if I can posit an analogy, is this list from the player Dragon Fodder, which did not 5-0, but it went 3-2 in one of the 20th anniversary qualifiers. So what they were doing was they were trying to use Lightning Skelemental. Mord is burying his face in his hands. He does not like Lightning Skelemental, apparently. No? Not a fan of the Skelemental? Are you not a fan of Goldhound? I mean, what is it? There's something you don't like here.
Everything. It has a fucking Elders. What the... Look at the side, Lord. At least it has 3 licensures. But... Path of Peril is an unplayable card. Why does it have an Elder spell?
So Lightning Skelemental, 6/1 trample haste for 3, and then it's because it's an elemental, it combos with Thunderkin Awakener. It also works with Unearth. So there was like a package you could play in Rakdos colors.
Where you just attack with your elemental or discard it to anything, or you just made it with Stitcher Supplier, and then you get your 2 mana Thunderkin Awakener, attack, reanimate your Skelemental, and get a 6/1 attacker every single attack step. So until you remove the Awakener, you keep attacking for 6 and making them discard 2. Alongside it, because you know it's gonna get sacrificed, you play stuff like Pillage Rites or Unearth to get it back efficiently. So the dream with this deck, like the dream, like dreamy scenario, like absolute dreamy, is you go turn 1 Stitcher Supplier and mill a Lightning Skelemental into turn 2 Thunderkin Awakener. Not only it survives, but you also connect for 6. And on turn 3, not only it survives again, you get to attack again, and then you get to play on Nixilis. Sacrificing the Skelemental that you just reanimated again.
Just like we drew it up in practice. I mean, that's beautiful.
Just like we drew it up. Just like in our simulation, boys. Just like in the simulations. The problem is, we're playing Modern, the format where Ragavan cannot connect. So if people are prepared for a 1-drop that with toughness 1, they are prepared for your 3-drop with toughness 1.
Well, I feel like this deck understands that because it's playing so many ways to bring the Skelemental back from the dead. It's not going to survive the first time, but maybe the second time, or the third time.
Maybe the 4th! Also, the 2 Spite Bellows just hurt my psyche.
I do not understand why Spite Bellows is here.
It's here because of Thunderkin Awakener.
Okay, but there's no way to, like, feed Spite Bellows to Nixilis. Actually, you could. If you had Thunderkin Awakener, you could.
Thunderkin Awakener. It's like everything is Thunderkin Awakener in this deck.
So Thunderkin Awakener gives you until your end step to make use of the elemental.
I love how it's playing 1 Flamekid Harbinger as a way to tutor those pieces. Because 1 is clearly enough.
3 Goldhounds. This is here to stop Ragavans. It's got First Strike and Menace. I don't know why you wouldn't just play Wild Canter.
I don't know why you don't play Bolt like a reasonable human being, but that's... No, there's a 1 of Burning Inquiry in here, why?
1 Burning Inquiry, 2 Claim the Firstborn, 2 Fatal Push, 3 Lightning Bolts.
That Burning Inquiry hurts my soul.
So, I feel like there's a way to improve this deck, but if it were built a little bit cleaner, do you feel like Nixilis, like, contributes meaningfully to the strategy?
I mean, it's a good way to make use of your creatures if you don't get to attack with them, which is gonna happen a good number of times. Like, your opponent is gonna control the board. Like, this deck cannot beat Atalia. Like, I don't think any creature can connect through Atalia. Kroxa can. Everything else dies to Atalia. Like, a 2/1 first strike is enough to control your whole board. So, having a way to go through that seems at least important.
Alright, so other Nixilis decks that we've seen. I mean, we have seen people try it in, like, the red-green Transmogrified lists, although it turns out that's just needlessly complicating a perfectly fine Gruul deck. So
yeah.
Even though that did 5-0 once, it's probably not worth splashing there. So I don't recommend splashing black for certainly not for Nixilis in your red-green Transmogrified Titan list.
Yeah, especially if it's gonna be your only black card. Oh, there's a Finish 3 Sun Elemental that you can play Kahira. That's nice.
And the last Nixilis deck that I think we talked about this before when it 5-0'd, was actually a Waste Not deck in Pioneer, where in order to play a Waste Not, you have to play a lot of Ravenous Rat effects, that is Elderfang Disciple, Acquisitions Expert, and Croxa. Supporting 4 Waste Nots, I think, the hope is that your opponent will play a Ledger Shredder, and then you can force them to connive to trigger Waste Not. But when they are not playing Ledger Shredder, you have to make them discard yourself. And that means that a card like Nixilis, the Adversary, the +1, in theory, threatens to make them discard, although in practice, does that actually happen? They can just lose 2 life. They don't have to give you the card.
Yeah, you do have Liliana Wake of the 2 at least. Make them discard. And Angrath also makes them discard.
So it's clever deck building here. This is from onlylands.com. They have fodder, right? They have the Elderfang and the Acquisitions Expert for the Nixilis. They could, in theory, even escape a Croxa if they wanted to. If you really, really want to get casualty 6 on your Ob, you could try that.
If you want to go deep. Yeah, it goes really heavy on the discard, and that I do like, because it forces your opponent into the constantly paying 2 life if they don't have a hand.
Alright, so where does that leave us? We've seen what people have done with it. None of these really convince me, except for the core Rakdos Sacrifice deck.
So what if the key to this is the strength of Claim the Firstborn, which I think might be just essential, right? Claim the Firstborn might be the linchpin in making this text work with Nixilis. Which I don't think is that off. Also, the latest version 2.5.0 also is featuring a full playset of Voldaren Epicure to make sure it has enough stuff to sacrifice in curve.
Interesting. Yeah, we do like the Epicure.
The Red Travel Inspector.
So for me, I feel like the unexplored space is that control build that you were alluding to. If you can just ensure that the battlefield is empty, one way to do that is by just filling your deck with removal. Then you can have 2 Nixilises, uncontested. +1ing every turn to your heart's content. But, how do you build that deck and still have fodder to feed to the Nixilis? How do you make Nixilis not be an embarrassment every time you draw it and you don't have the board under control yet?
So, what about a not so bad version of the Rakdos discard Waste Not deck, where you play efficient fodder and a lot of removal spells because your fodder is attacking their hand?
Do you feel like there are better options than what's in this onlylands.com version?
I'm sure there are better versions than Waste Not and Angrath.
Oh, they're playing Unlicensed Hearse on the sideboard.
And they're playing 3. They're playing the right number, which is not 2. I don't care if it's 0, 1, 3, or 4. It's not 2. I also just like Liliana Waker of the Dead.
It's underrated Liliana for sure. Once it's in play, you're like, wow, that's actually just straight up card advantage.
Yeah, that's getting out of hand fast.
Direction that I want to try is, I'm still intrigued by the Crawl Harpooner. We talked about this last week.
The Kurusu deck lists are playing one as well. The Vanifar Pod are starting to play that exact card.
It's excellent against both Spirits and Ledger Shredder. Spirits had a good weekend. Ledger Shredder's everywhere. But what if we also are interested in a really high-powered, just for one turn, right? A really high-powered Crawl Harpooner. Right? You could try to give it haste, or you could try to feed it to something, right? What if you just cast it, decline to fight, but you still get, +4, +0, or +3, +low, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you just cast Ob. Casualty 6.
Okay. That's interesting.
Basically, I want an excuse to play 4 Harpooners main deck.
You want to play 4 Harpooners and hope you face a lot of Spirits and Mono Blue.
Exactly. But when I don't face that, I need the Harpooner to, still do something.
Yeah. I want it not to be just a miracle. I want it to actually be good when I'm not facing the miracle deck.
So my hope is that Ob can be that thing that makes the Harpooner, worth it. It's either that or Invigorating Hot Springs. To give it haste.
Just go all in on the plan. I want that +6, +0 to be valuable.
Exactly.
Is there anything else you can sacrifice it to that could be interesting based on power? That's not fling.
Well, there's that card, Deadly something or other, that makes 1/1s, makes pest tokens.
Oh, yeah. That's
What
bad.
is that called?
I don't know, but that's bad.
It's from Strixhaven. Black-green instant, sack creature, you get pests equal to its power.
10 the best.
10 the pest, that's it. Yes.
Oh, that's bad.
I was thinking of Deadly Brew, that's the card I was thinking of. It's not Deadly Brew, it's 10 the pests.
10 the best. And then you just play a Blex next turn. You just play a Blex, the Vexing Pest, and win with that.
You could feed your Crawl Harpooner to a Life's Legacy if you want. If you want to go full South Park.
We're just going down. We're just going downwards.
Exactly.
But Dan, when Blex Vexing Pest dies, you gain 4 life. 4 life, Dan.
I could not tell you what Plex does. It's like a lord for pests, right?
And bats, insects, snakes, and spiders.
And then there's also an entirely different card on the back, the search for Blex.
And I don't remember what the backside does. It's like a black sorcery.
Yeah, let's not read that. 'Tis a silly card. So there might be another deck with Ob.
I would love to take it in the direction, maybe that's something I want to try, of a more controlling version, trying to exploit the self-sacrifice effect on your opponent's creatures with, like, claim the Firstborn and such, which I think is the best idea you can go for.
You just have to make Claim the Firstborn do something even when you're not in those matchups.
I think that's the biggest issue.
That could be as simple as just like having looting effects.
Yeah.
Control deck with Fable the Mirror Breaker or whatever.
Fable the Mirror Breaker just popping up everywhere.
Exactly. Okay, well, this will be my task for the week. I'll try to come up with something. It will probably have more Crawl Harpooners than Nixilis, but maybe it'll be 4 of each.
It'll have more Harpooners than it should.
Yeah, or it might be like Grixis Control, 4 Dwarven Mines, some little chats to like draw 2 off the Dwarven Mine tokens. I don't know, I feel like there's like something there with Casualty that doesn't require a creature deck per se.
Maybe there is. We just need to find a control deck that has creatures. And that's really hard.
Precisely. Alright, well let's forget about Ob. Shift gears for a second. Tell me a little bit about Jinnie Fey, Mord.
So, Jinnie Fey, the beautiful winner that we have seen a lot of brews from the guys in the Discord, and just going off because who doesn't love making cats and dogs? We are easily persuade humans, and cats and dogs just makes us go brrr.
So I talked a couple of weeks ago about my first attempts in Modern to play this. I played it in like a Naya kitchen deck. I played it in the Galazeth Bring to Light list that I mentioned that's on our YouTube channel. People in our Discord have been running with this card a little bit. I got some interesting ideas. I just want to like summarize some of the things that are being talked about and see if there's any paths forward here. So first up, we have a list from Miss Cameron, who actually writes some sweet articles for a store called Owl Central Games. You should definitely check out her stuff. Miss Cameron is proposing to combine some of the things that I like best with Jinnie, which is like the Gilded Goose into Jinnie combo, but also pair it with 2-drops. 1 is Magda, Brazen Outlaw. 2, Amara Soul of the Accord, and 3 is Gala Greeters. These all work in different ways with Jinnie Fey. Magda and Amara, you obviously want to like tap them as often as possible, and there's 4 Jasper Sentinels here to facilitate with that. You could also play Springleaf Drum if you wanted to, although Miss Cameron does not have those in this build.
Time to unban the looter scooter.
Oh, if only. I mean, wouldn't that be so sweet?
Just give us the scooter.
Well, I guess you could crew unlicensed hearse if you really need something to crew. Gala Greeters works differently, right? You just cast this, cast Jinnie, immediately get a trigger, choose to make a treasure. You can get a cat or a dog. That triggers the Gala Greeters again. All 3 of these 2-drops, Gala Greeters, Amara, Magda, work fantastically with the Jinnie Fey strategy. So there's 4 Jinnie Fey on 3 mana, 3 Adeline Resplendent Cathar, 3 Nissa Voice of Zendikar. These are both token makers. Nissa, I think, is especially powerful here.
I do love some Adeline. I do fear the mana base slightly in here. Green, green, white, green, red, double white, double green.
Yeah, you're asking like a fair bit from the mana. You do have the Jasper Sentinel, which makes any colors. Same with Magda. Magda makes any color.
Same with Goose.
And Greeters can make treasures, although they are slow.
Okay, so maybe there's enough fixing with the treasures and such. I do love any deck that plays Nixilis of Zendikar.
There's 2 Mox Ambers here, and Mox Amber actually taps for 3 different colors off Jinnie Fey, which is kind of cute.
That's nice. It just taps for complete Naya. The one of Strom's expertise in the sideboard is a bit random.
Well, I mean, I think sometimes it's just like we put these cards in to remind ourselves that they exist. We'll test them at some point.
We just like them.
I have a lot of sideboards like this where it's like, okay, I don't seriously think these are the right cards for any given matchup. I just want to remind myself that I want to try these cards at some point.
Do you know the Marsh meme? Like just holding the potato? I just think they're neat.
Exactly. Marge Simpson.
Exactly.
So a couple other brews from our Discord still in Pioneer that actually are both using Gala Greeters, trying to tap into this synergy. And they do so in different ways. So the next one is from Lurking Evil, and this one is very, very streamlined. It's 4 Elvish Mystic, 4 Llanowar Elves, and 3 Gilded Goose, so we're really going hard on mana dorks. All of those, with the exception of Goose, are Elves, and at the 2 slot, you'll see that we really get paid off for that in the form of Elvish Warmaster and Dwynen's Elite, as well as 4 Gala Greeters. Warmaster and Dwynen's Elite trigger off of Elves coming into play, and Jinnie Fey is herself an Elf. So if you have a Warmaster and you play a Jinnie Fey, you can immediately get another token, which can become a cat or a dog.
Immediately get a doggy.
Exactly. Now, the top of the curve here is a little bit off plan if we're thinking of this as an Elves deck. We have 4 Collected Company, but then we branched out of the Elf tribe. We were playing 4 Extraction Specialists and 4 Heroic Reinforcements, a card that, I mean, I mentioned this in our first brew session, is like, that's a lot of power.
You did.
Is it so much power that it's worth like splashing into 2 other colors for it? I'm not totally sure, but I like what Lurking Evil is thinking here.
I mean, I don't think it's just 2 completely colors, because the sideboard is completely white and also is a specialist. Like, I think you need white. Like, I think on essence this is a Celestia deck.
Yes.
The red, though, is where the splash might get a bit too greedy.
Well, you have treasures, right? You have Gala Greeters, you have the Gilded Goose, so it's not out of the question, and you only need red once eventually.
Yeah, and it's as a finisher, so it's not like forcing the mana too much.
The other concern is that like Heroic Reinforcements could have been a 3-drop in your Collected Company deck, so maybe we just want to choose another powerful 3-drop creature to make the companies better.
I mean, you're still playing 31 creatures, which is above the 27 required.
You are, but like you're going to start every game with a mana dork. You want more 3-drops, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think you want more 3-drops. What is a reasonable 3-drop for this sort of deck?
Well, I was going to mention the next build from Camberleaf because it actually solves that question, right? I think Goblin Rabblemaster would be an excellent 3-drop.
Or just Fable.
Yeah. So Camberleaf has built a Gruul deck with a lot of elves and Gilded Geese, but then on the 3 slot, Camberleaf is playing 4 Rabblemaster, 4 Fable, 4 Jinnie Fey. Gala Greeters and Prosperous Innkeeper on 2, 4 Asika's Chariot, 2 Siege Gang Commander, and 4 Chord of Calling.
You need to find those Jinnie Feys.
You do.
You really need to find them.
So I'm not totally sure that Rabblemaster is the right card. Like maybe War Boss is just better. Like the way that it interacts with Jinnie Fey is slightly more generous.
I prefer Rabblemasters, which is not forced to attack.
But War Boss gives you a haste dog.
It's so I think I can't really call one better than the other, because like in the situations without Jinnie Fey, I tend to prefer Rabblemaster as it's a faster clock, right?
It is.
And with Jinnie Fey, I'm not sure which is better. Not being forced, like when you're a lot of the time when you have Jinnie Fey plus a Rabblemasters, you're gonna be on like a parity board, and if your opponent has like anything that can trade favorably with the dogs, it becomes almost a downside if you have the War Leader. On the contrary, a Rabblemasters you just get to keep growing your army. It's like having a Snaring Breach and 0 cards in hand.
But between these, I feel like the solution to the 3-drop problem is somewhere in this. Whether that's Rabblemaster, whether that's War Boss. You could try Briarbridge Tracker, maybe. I feel like that's a decent card. to work with Jinnie Fey. Extraction Specialist is kind of interesting call from Lurking Evil here.
I'm wondering, maybe, yeah, just take out the heroic reinforcement at 4. The thing is, I want to cut the splash. Like I'm saying, yeah, you can add Rabblemasters instead of reinforcements, but the plan is reducing the splash, not adding more to it.
I mean, I really like the Nissa Voices Zendikar in Miss Cameron's deck, but that's not a company hit.
No, but it's a good card to play on turn 2 with a dork.
It is, it really is.
And it also works well with dorks, as it allows you to make them bigger. Okay, maybe that's like a better card in that situation.
Alright, so those are 3 Jinnie Fey concepts for Pioneer. We'll mention also one modern build. This comes to us from BomattCourier, who's Matt Camo. Tell me about this deck more.
So, we started the deck pretty reasonably. Pretty modern-like. 4 Utopias Pro, 4 Arbor Elf. And then all of a sudden, we go completely off the handle. 4 Chalice of the Void, 2 Sylvan Anthem, which is a 2-mana enchantment, which is your green creatures gets +1/+1, and whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you scry 1. Prosperous Innkeeper as a 2-of, 4 Verdant Command, the Squirrel Raise the Alarm, and 3 Sprout Swarm.
I'm sorry, did you just say Sprout Swarm?
I just said Sprout Swarm. Our beautiful, beautiful Convoke plus buyback card. What an annoying synergy that is. Alongside that, we have our 3 drops, which go from pretty expected, like Jinnie Fey and 3-mana Nissa, into Wrist, which is likely better Nissa, into Chatterfang, which makes a lot of sense if you're playing so many squirrels, into a one-off Squirrel Nest.
Yes.
But more. Is this a mono green deck? Yes, it is. We're playing 21 lands, all produce green, 1 Shamishava, 10 fetch lands, because of course we have Gingerbread Cabin in our mono green deck. And 4 Karn, the Great Creators, are top end. Because why not play Karn?
So I believe this started off as a Sprout Swarm deck. Right? Like, I don't know why, but Bomat was just like fascinated by Sprout Swarm. It's a card that is so insanely broken in its limited draft environment that it's kind of got a legendary status.
When you play that in draft or when you play that in cube, you just feel like king of the world. It's insane.
Is that the kind of card that can cross over into constructed? I don't think so, but I mean, Matt played this a little bit. He went 4-1 in the tournament practice room, so maybe there's something there.
The 4 Kalis are also so crazy.
I don't understand them. I don't understand what's going on there.
Just, why not? That's the biggest reason.
Okay. I mean, play it on 0, I guess. Like, but I just don't get it.
I can't justify, like, if you want me to give you a reason, I can't. But
okay.
You're gonna admit living in.
Yeah. I mean, you should put 1 in the Karn Wishboard at least.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're going to do that. All right, well, this is more of a proof of concept than anything else. If you want to dominate the tournament practice room, this is the list for you.
And that leaves us with a few different perspectives on Jinnie Fey, mostly in Pioneer, as it seems like most of our viewers have actually agreed that it's mostly a Pioneer power level card. But maybe there's something we have yet to see in Modern. Seeing a Chatterfang really makes me want to go into the game object sort of insane plan.
I played a Chatterfang when I played Naya game objects with Collected Company. Chatterfang was actually really good. I wish I had played more than 1. So I think it's not crazy to play like 3 or 4 copies of Chatterfang with Jinnie Fey, of course.
With Jinnie Fey, of course.
Yeah. All right, so that's Jinnie Fey. Speaking of following up, I guess the last thing I want to mention is the moderation deck we talked about last week. So, Mord, you were 3-0 when we last saw this deck. Do you have any follow-up thoughts on, like, how do you feel about moderation now?
You know damn well how that league finished. There's only one person to blame on that.
Yes. Previously on Faithless Brewing, Mord was 3-0 with his moderation brew.
And all of a sudden, Dan said, you're gonna 5-0.
So now that you got cursed and went 3-2, how do you feel about it? How do you feel about the build?
I think moderation is pretty good. At least it reinstalled my lab for Yorion. But the thing is, a lot of playing in Modern is cantripping through your deck, and those cards really don't work with moderation. And that was, I think, one of the bigger issues, which is to make your deck good when playing moderation, you need to make your deck worse when you don't have it.
So I was thinking about that, right? Because we were talking about whether you should play Omen of the Seas or not. And I was thinking maybe you should. Like, maybe you just need more card draw. So I decided to try your list. I changed about 10 cards, but it's substantially the same list. You know, I added like a Shark Typhoon. I added a couple Chalice of the Void just because. Took out some of the good cards because they couldn't fit them under my rental limit.
Oh, of course.
Added the Nimble Obstructionists.
I mean, I have been loving. I'm playing 2 Nimble in my Yorion deck, like in the one I'm playing in leagues, which I am like. I was 12-3. I got an R for 1, so 16, and then a 3-2. So I'm like 18-7, and I'm playing 2 Nimble Obstructionist main deck because I'm sick of losing to Gruul.
Oh, okay.
It counters a lot of stuff. It counters Cascade.
It does.
And it counters Otawara.
I mean, it's a decent effect. So yeah, I haven't minded having the 1 copy. I could see playing 2.
Yeah.
My results so far, I'm 3-1 in my league. Takes forever to win. I'll just throw that out there. But I do feel like there's a bunch of games where I play moderation and then I don't actually have a follow-up spell. And I feel like I wouldn't mind having a cantrip. Like, I know we talked about how in some scenarios you're just like so flush with spells you couldn't possibly use them all. But there were several games where I was like short on just cheap things to pull ahead.
Maybe the answer is just playing, instead of Tristan and Kali, just for Omen of the Seas.
In addition to Ice Fangs?
Yeah. Like right now in the Azorius version I am playing 4 Wall of Omens, 4 Spreading Seas, 4 Omen of the Seas. Which is the Yorion Dream.
But no moderations in that deck.
But no moderations in that deck.
I mean, I'm playing Spreading Seas on my sideboard, but yeah, I almost feel like I have too much Sorcery Suite stuff.
Yeah, I would add Omen of the Seas, not Spreading Seas.
Gotcha. I trimmed like a little bit too much counter magic in my builds. Like, you do get to a certain point where you don't really want to draw cards, you just want to lock the game up. And a hard counter does that. An extra copy of moderation does not do that because, you know, you want safety, and there's safety in having a lot of mana and like multiple counter spells in hand.
Yeah, there's nothing I love more than that feeling. Like, I really enjoy long games with Counter Wars. The other day I was playing as Living End, and we didn't cast a single spell until turn 13. Like, he just kept cycling, and I played spells. I played like Omens and bad cantrips. And all of a sudden, on turn 13, we had like a 7 counterspell war over at the ferry. My opponent casted during that counter war 2 Forces of Negation, a Mystical Dispute, and a Commandeer.
Oh boy. Who won?
I won via double Flusterstorm, 1 counterspell, and an Archmage Charm. It was insane.
Yeah, so more hard counters is good. I mean, I appreciated how Teferi can take the moderation away.
Yeah.
Like I did that a couple times. But yeah, for some reason, I felt like my build was not maximizing moderation. Like, maybe I just needed more total cheap spells.
I'm in love with detecting one of those in your photos. Who wins 2 Curious Crabs versus 1 Moderate Boy?
Oh, that was against the Grixis Indomitable Creativity deck with hard evidence.
I find that so funny for some reason.
Yeah. All right, so we posited that there's only one moderation deck.
Yeah.
And we think it's this Yorion control.
I think it's a Yorion control. Maybe it's Bant. Maybe it's Azorius, but most definitely it's a control shell, more than likely featuring Yorion that's trying to play a long game and playing some number of false spells in the wave of Timeless Dragon, Shark Typhoon, Colossal Sky Turtle, Otawara, and such to allow you to double spell when necessary.
So there's no chance it's like a Taxus deck with Orkan of Emeria and Ether Vial.
I mean, I haven't tried that, but I'm a coward.
Okay.
Maybe it is. Maybe the key is just playing Ether Vial.
Yeah. Alright, so that's our brief look at moderation, an update on Jinnie Fey, and of course, trying to make Nixilis do something. Like, come on. Do something.
Come on. You're hitting with the stick. Please, do something.
Exactly.
Please.
We will let you know what we discover in our future editions, of course. And if you have any ideas for Nixilis, moderation, Jinnie, anything like that, we would love to hear from you. So get at us on Twitter. We are at FaithlessMPG, or you can find us anywhere else in our Discord, etc.
Exactly. And with that being said, have a nice night, everybody. Hope you have a good day. And if remember, even if things are looking a bit dark, it's all going to be better soon. So, bye!
Deck lists for this episode can be viewed at our homepage, faithlessbrewing.com. And tune in next time for an interview with Davius Minimus, the creator of Tameshi Bloom. Support for this podcast is provided by brewers like you. If you like what we do, you can join our community at patreon.com/faithlessbrewing for Discord access, bonus content, and more. That's all for today. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, it's coming on Halo. I was forsaken. I have been abandoned by Daniel Schreiber, and now I'm on my own. Hello, welcome to This Is More,